I'm going to start with a poem that's not by me. It's very short, and I like it. It was written by someone I was in a writers group with a long time ago, and I haven't got her permission to read it. But I don't think she'll mind, and it's called Not a Poem. If you think this is a poem, you are mistaken. It's just a long, meandering, rather tedious sentence that doesn't know where it's come from or where it's going. But it has pretensions, so perhaps it is a poem. After all, who knows what poetry is? And it's by Annette.
I love it.
It kind of resonates with me. It's always resonated with me because I'm not the sort of poet that wants to write stuff that's very literary, that only highbrow people can understand. I like to write poetry that's very accessible to all. So I'm going to start, rather appropriately, with a poem, a very short poem again, called A Cup of Tea. And this I wrote after an encounter with an Iranian taxi driver who was rather depressed, and I had a long journey with a few years ago. And really I'm going to have two poems which are on the theme of immigration. In my country, strangers are welcome in our homes. We give food and drink. It is our duty, of course, but it comes also from the warmth of our hearts. We are happy to meet you. I am here 3 years, and you are the first English person to invite me into their home for a cup of tea. And this one is another one on the theme of immigration. I wrote it a few weeks ago, and it's about the immigrants coming over on their boats in the Mediterranean. It's called Hunger's Rage. 10,000 tried to enter Italy today on small wooden boats, for which they paid thousands, for a small place of safety, where war does not rage, where Medcare is free, where human rights are observed, where police don't carry guns and shoot first and ask no questions later. 10,000 tried. The West looked on, puzzled by this desperation. Why don't they stay in their own countries? Don't they know they're not wanted here? We've got just enough to go round. We can't spread ourselves too thin, or we'll be hungry and poor like them. They should stay with their own kind. We don't want them to rock our boat. If they drown, what can we do? It's not our fault. They chose to get on the boats. They chose to leave their own countries. We're not responsible. 10,000 tried. A few made it. 10,000. On a lighter note, the next poem was a story told to me by someone who comes from Barbados, who's a great friend of mine. Come on in. Boys in Barbados in those days, if you find an old bicycle wheel, you can make so much. The inner tube is cut in strips and wrapped round a stone to make a bouncy ball. The outer wheel, when you strip it, was a hoop to roll with a stick. The spokes we used for traps. And then there was Gutter Perks. His eyes were far away, running wild and free, boys up to no good, adventures, mischief, ducking and hiding and foraging for fruit, making fires and roasting breadfruit. Gutter Perks, he said again, you look out for a fork branch, cut and scrape it, cut a piece from the tongue of an old shoe, some thick rubber bands. You call them catapults, we call them Gutter Perks. Well, I said, not to be outdone, me and my cousin Dee, we bought Bowie knives with our saved up pocket money. They had leather scabbards and a loop for your belt, and we thought we were Davy Crockett hunting in the long grass on the hills and dales of Abergwine. We scooped limpets from their shells and strung them dangling down into the sea, sitting on a rock, catching crabs for our buckets. Who could get the biggest? No adults disturbed our days. We swam and ate our chunky sandwiches and went home at dark for tea. But his eyes were far away, running wild with his Gutter Perk, not listening to me. I'm going to do one more short one, and then I'm going to introduce our next poet. This one I wrote about, I used to travel back and forth to Egypt quite a lot. I used to take tourists down the Nile on a felucca, and one of those boats with a wheel. And it's called Before Sunrise in the East. Rudely awakened at God-forsaken 5 a.m. I smell the dust and heat and remember where I am. The Muezzin call electronically loud all over the city, from the loudspeakers at the top of the mosques, strategically placed trumpets blaring crisscross over the hot, misty city, calling to arms Allah's army of worshippers. Get up, fall to your knees, face Mecca and pray. And I, in my godless Western sloth, turn over and pull my pillows over my head. Thank you.